we'll get started. So welcome to this webinar, everyone, on the Refugee Investment Facility, Scaling Impact, Advancing Resilient Economies for Refugees and Host Communities. We're doing this webinar here on the 18th of June, 2025, 2 weeks away from the World Refugee Day on the 20th of June, to both mark a milestone for our investment facility, but also spotlight in particular the contributions to the improvement of the lives of refugees and host communities that enterprises are able to make. My name is Morten Högnesen. I'm the head of the Program Innovation and Business Engagement Unit at the Danish Refugee Council. I'm also a board member of the RIF, an investment committee member of the RIF, and with many of the other panelists here today have been involved with the RIF from the very beginning. I have the pleasure of opening the webinar, introducing the agenda, and adding a few words of context and background before we may move into the main program. Before going through the agenda high level, I wanted to mention just a couple of house rules and announcements. One is, of course, as I said before, to mention that this webinar is being recorded, so just that everyone is aware of that. The second is to ask everyone to keep their mics on mute, at least until the Q&A session at the end. And the third one is to encourage everyone to use the chat function. Feel free to say hi, note who you are, where you're dialing in from, and also feel free to post questions there as we go along. We'll then try to catch some of them in the Q&A session at the end. And if there's anything we didn't make it to during the webinar, we'll try to get back to you after. So those were the service announcements. I think with that, we can move to the agenda slide. We have a pretty packed program here, and so I won't go into it in detail now. Each of the presenters will present themselves in more detail when they speak. So I also don't want to cover this in any level of detail here. What I will say is that you will hear from RIF members or staff, both from the Danish Refugee Council and the iGravity side. You'll hear from 3 of the amazing enterprises that we're fortunate enough to be supporting with the RIF, and you'll also hear from one of our funders, the Hilton Foundation, at the end. And you'll also have to endure my voice for a few minutes here at the beginning and a few minutes at the end for some closeout remarks. With that, let's move into the first segment, a bit of context and background on the Refugee Investment Facility, and more importantly, the situation that it tries to address. The numbers here on the screen are probably known to a lot of us. We've changed this number over the years on this slide, from 2022 to 2023 to 2024. Unfortunately, the number keeps on growing, and so the situation that we're left with is that we have a growing number of forcibly displaced persons, and a growing proportion of them tend to stay in protracted displacement situation. The basic entry point of the Refugee Investment Facility is to say, on the one hand, traditional humanitarian approaches are not sufficient to address the challenges associated with protracted displacement. Investment approaches are generally good at supporting and incentivizing the private sector, but doesn't really work that well on their own in these situations of forced displacement. And so that's the whole rationale, you can say, of trying to bridge humanitarian and investment approaches. It aims to offer the best of both worlds, so to speak. So leveraging the insights, the networks, and the experience of a humanitarian NGO who is used to working with forcibly displaced persons and their host communities and in the countries affected by displacement, and a specialized impact investing firm like iGravity, who have the tools and the knowledge and the experience to work with the private sector in the smartest way. That's what the RIF really is about, and how we set out to try to make our small contribution to addressing the challenges faced by some of these people who are behind these numbers. We started almost 5 years ago. And a lot have happened, both in the world generally and in our small world of impact investing and refugee events investing. There's now a growing movement that seeks to work with investment approaches in situations of forced displacement and other situations of fragility. We're proud to have been part of that movement for the last several years, and look forward to continuing to do our part in the years to come. And I think with that, it's probably time to move into the main part of this webinar, which will start with a slightly deeper look at what the Refugee Investment Facility is, how it's structured, and what it does. So with those words, welcome everyone. Thanks for being with us, and over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Morten, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick. I'm the CEO of iGravity, who is the investment manager of the Refugee Investment Facility, and I'm also a board member of the RIF. In the next couple of minutes, I will speak to you briefly about the strategy and the structure of the RIF before diving more into our current portfolio. So our investment strategy is really anchored around 4 main investment themes and impact targets, which means that we aim at identifying and investing into companies that are covering one or more of these themes and targets, starting with capacity and skills. So really aiming at increased employability and access to skills enhancement services for both refugees as well as host communities. Then decent work, so improving access to quality and formal employment opportunities. Then access to financial inclusion, as well as essential goods and services, whether it be renewable energy, healthcare services, and so on. Very importantly, the RIF is really a so-called impact-first facility, which means we are really seeking enterprises based on our impact targets and theory of change, and we finance them with so-called impact-linked loans, which means we provide private loans to local businesses with a maturity of 3 to 6 years, where we fix an interest rate and we agree with the businesses on 2 relevant KPIs for them, 2 impact KPIs. And if the businesses are successful in achieving and generate the impact we have agreed upon, the interest rate is reduced accordingly every year. At the same time, we combine the financing with technical assistance, which we know is very much needed as well. And the technical assistance covers both business financial assistance as well as tailored refugee impact assistance. We are clearly a facility with a high risk appetite. We invest in a fragile context, and we really aim at moving capital to underserved communities. Very often, the Refugee Investment Facility is the first institutional investor in some of these businesses, really helping build traction and the track record so that these businesses are then able to access local financing opportunities. And last but not least, given this is really new and this is obviously challenging, we have opted to go with the pilot to scale approach, which means we have decided to fundraise and start with the focus pilot in Uganda, Jordan, and Kenya. We are now coming towards the end of the pilot, obviously with intention to scale, but this is really important to mention that we follow a pilot to scale approach, integrating learning as we move and go. We can move to the next slide. So we have decided to work with the so-called blended finance structure. So we have set up the Refugee Investment Facility as an investment company domiciled in Switzerland. And given the context in which we're investing and obviously the willingness to take high risk, for us it was clear that we would need to blend investments with grant funding. So today we have impact investors, which are providing loans to the Refugee Investment Facility, concessional loans, important to say. And we have a number of donors, which are providing grant funding, which goes into the Refugee Investment Facility and is capitalized as equity. So becomes equity capital, which is utilized to provide loans. At the same time, we have additional grants who cover the operational side, so the work of iGravity and the Danish Refugee Council, as well as the technical assistance. Obviously, this funding is channeled then through the refugee facility to local businesses in the form of impact-linked loans. Maybe also as a last comment, it has taken us quite a while to come up with the right structure. We were able to get a ruling from the tax authorities for grants not incurring any taxation. And there's a very strong partnership on the ground between the iGravity and the Danish Refugee Council team, starting with pipeline generation, due diligence, portfolio management, and monitoring. And I think this is only possible because we cover different types of expertise. Thank you. And I hand over now to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm Elizabeth West. I'm the co-head of investments at iGravity. And I just want to take a few minutes to provide an update on where the portfolio is currently at. As Morten mentioned, we've been working on the Refugee Investment Facility for about 5 years, and it took us quite a while to get the structure set up and do the fundraising. And we actually started actively making investments only in 2023, with an overall goal of making 7 to 10 loans to companies in our pilot countries, originally of Jordan and Uganda, and now also Kenya. We are close to hitting that goal of 7 to 10 loans over the next few months. Overall, the RIF has made 5 loans to date, and we have an additional 2 loans that have been approved and are going to be dispersed shortly. So just taking you through what those loans are to give you a sense of how we go about building our portfolio. We have a few loans in the agriculture sector. We have Omia Agribusiness, an agricultural inputs provider. We also have the founder of Omia here, and he'll be speaking a little bit in a little bit. So I think he can give you much more details about the company. In addition, in our agricultural portfolio, we have AgPlotus and Okeba, and both of these are companies that are agricultural traders that make land available for refugees for farming in Uganda, as well as providing training for farming and financial literacy. And rounding out our agricultural portfolio, we have Ali Dates, which is a date exporter based in Jordan. We also have one of the co-founders here who will be speaking shortly. And we were very excited to make our first Sharia compliant loan to Ali Dates, I believe, last month. And now we're also in the process of building up our access to finance portfolio. We recently dispersed a loan to Omipa, which is a SACCO in Western Uganda that has a dedicated portfolio with lower interest rates to refugees. And soon we'll be dispersing to Rufi, a cross-border MFI, where we have the CEO here to speak as well as Finca Uganda, which is the Ugandan microfinance branch of the very well-known MFI that has many branches throughout the world. We are going to continue to disperse the remaining capital we have in our portfolio over the next few months. We have about an additional 1.3 million from our pilot fund that we'll be dispersing, looking to make loans in new markets. As Patrick mentioned, we're now actively sourcing and diligencing deals in Kenya. And we're also looking to make loans in more sectors as well. So in our short-term pipeline, we have companies in the fintech sector, the health sector, the energy sector, and a few others. Ultimately, we want to continue to build a portfolio that is geographically and sectorally diverse, as well as diverse from an impact perspective, making sure that there's lots of different types of impact occurring in accordance with our impact themes. And we're looking forward to giving everybody a final update on our portfolio at the end of the year once the pilot is fully dispersed. Overall, just very quickly in terms of some lessons learned from the RIF point of view, but also potentially of interest to other refugee-focused initiatives. We noted already that pipeline building and due diligence always takes a bit longer than expected. And we found this to be especially true in contexts where strong alignment of the company activity and the refugee impact is really critical to company selection. So oftentimes in investment facilities, you have a funnel, but we notice that our funnel really gets very tight once we do the impact screening as well. And that results in longer due diligence timelines and longer portfolio build-up timelines than a regular investment facility. We've also experienced exogenous shocks, which can cause an issue with portfolio growth. We certainly have encountered a certain amount of difficulty in the Jordanian market due to some regional events that have occurred over the last couple of years. But we also think this is going to continue to be true as the RIF continues to expand to new geographies that might be fragile or in flux or having different levels of political instability. We've also noted that different contexts require flexibility in terms of impact expectations and different business models. Just as an example, we've had particular difficulty finding portfolio companies that are going to have a real impact on the direct employment space. And so it's challenged a bit our thinking when it comes to impact, cost, and benefit considerations. And we're looking forward to trying to deploy some new models that can have an impact on that for RIF 2.0 as we start to scale. With all of that said, we're really pleased with the portfolio that we've been able to build to date. And it's my pleasure to introduce the 3 speakers that are coming from the RIF portfolio companies. Join us today, we have Ignacio Omiya. He's the Managing Director of Omiya Agribusiness Development Group. We have Khaled El-Kouz, who's one of the co-founders of Ali Dates. And we have Yengi Lukule, and he's the CEO of Rufi. So over to you, Mr. Omiya, to introduce your company.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and everyone that has joined us today for this webinar. I'm Ignacio Omiya. I'm the CEO and founder here at Omiya Agribusiness Development Group Limited. I was born and raised in Nyumbe district in northern Uganda, and Omiya Agribusiness ensures that every farmer has access to climate-smart agricultural production inputs for crop and animal production that is blended with the relevant training and market access. Most of the food consumed in Africa is produced by smallholder farmers. But over 72% of these farmers struggle with access. Sorry, next slide, Eugenia. Hey, can you hear me?
We hear you fine. Yeah, please continue.
Sorry about that. So it's raining in Arua, so the network is a bit not clear. Yeah, so I was saying most of these smallholder farmers struggle with access to climate-smart agricultural inputs. And for Uganda case, over 81% of the farmers are not able to access improved agricultural seeds. And close to 96% are not able to have access to fertilizers. And most of them also struggle with access to agriculture extension services, specifically targeting climate-smart agriculture and regenerative farming practices. And after the production process, most of the farmers struggle with linkages to reliable and profitable markets for their output. How most of us get to see this manifest itself is not enough being produced for households to consume, and not enough being produced for them to sell to earn income, leading to persistent hunger and poverty. And with the case of, the influx of refugees that's happening in Uganda, it even worsens the situation. So what are we doing about it as Omiya Agribusiness Development Group Limited? The next slide is we have a unique 3-in-1 solution to farmers. We source and make available climate resilient agricultural inputs for crop and animal production. We also provide real-time training or after-sale services to the farmers, both from our outlets, through our extension officers, and through our agent networks. Then after the production process, we have a dedicated brand name called Omia Foods that provides ready market for the output that is coming from the smallholder farmers. And since we started operations in July 2018, we are now working with about 61,186 farmers. And now most of these farmers have seen higher yields. They're able to have more food and of course, more income. And I'm going to talk about this in the coming slides. And how do we make money as Omia Agribusiness Development Group Limited is from mainly three sources. We sell the crop production inputs like seeds and fertilizers. It contributes 68% of our revenue. Then also sale of the animal production inputs like veterinary drugs and animal feeds contributes about 20% of our revenue. And the youngest unit of the business, which is providing market to farmers, source from farmers and sell to consumers, contributes about 12% of our revenue as Omia Agribusiness Development Group Limited. And yes, please, next. So we were very lucky to be the first investee of the Refugee Investment Facility in 2023. And we got a 300,000 impact-linked loan, working capital. And that working capital was also to enable us widen our market base. Because initially, I think serving refugees was not a priority for us as a business because we had a limited working capital that we could only use to serve mostly Ugandan farmers. So this injection into our business meant that we're able to serve markets that initially we were not even reaching to. And the beautiful thing with the Refugee Investment Facility is also that it comes with key technical assistance, because during the due diligence process, they identified some internal weaknesses that we needed to work on. And this included, of course, on governance, on management, some operational guidelines to help improve our operations, and also systems and reporting. And before, if we didn't have an advisory board, but now we do an advisory board. We meet regularly, and the management is more accountable to the board. And even as we're speaking, we're still doing some staff training on some of the things that we realized while working in the field. For example, VSLAs, because most of the farmers we're working with are organized in VSLA groups, and that training has been very key, equipping our teams to be able to serve the farmers. And the end result of all this is, to support refugees to be able to access the essential products and services, in this case, agricultural inputs, which enables them to earn income, which can be a source of employment for them, and doing so with the relevant skills that our team provides. So how has this impacted our business and the refugees? Is 13% of the 61,000 farmers that I mentioned earlier are refugees. And initially, refugees were only forming 2% of the number of farmers that were able to serve. Recently, we did an impact assessment study by 60 decibels, and that impact assessment study indicated that 92% of the farmers that worked with us as Omia Agribusiness increased production, and over 89% also increased their earnings. That same report also pointed that 44% of the farmers that are sourcing, that are working with Omia Agribusiness have improved food security by working with us. And we have also increased our presence from just 12 outlets by adding 3 more outlets. Now we have 15 outlets. And the thing is, most of our outlets are in the refugee hosting districts. And our staff numbers have also increased from just 54 to now 81 full-time staff. And now we work with over 190 last mile agents from just the 74. And 23% of these agents are from the refugee settlements, ensuring last mile access to refugees. And the other indirect benefit we have got as a business is investment readiness, because going through the due diligence process has enabled us to be more investment ready, but it has also exposed us to a lot of other opportunities and other investors that are also looking at the forcibly displaced persons space. You can also see, I think, the graph, which shows the jump from 2022 to 2023. to the 2023-2024. And this has been mainly attributed to the capital injection from the Refugee Investment Facility. So thank you so much. That's it from me, Atomia Agribusiness Development Group Limited. I will give it over to my colleagues to say the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amia. And I think there'll be some questions for you at the end I see popping up in the chat. But for the time being, I'd like to pass it over to Khaled Elkuz, one of the co-founders of Validates.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And thank you for having us all on this webinar today. So my name is Khaled, and I co-founded the company Validates a few years ago, but the company goes back in time as a family business for many years from before. So my father started the company. That's so Validates. Ali is the name of my father. He started the company. He was a refugee from Palestine, born in Jericho, so in a refugee camp in Palestine, and then moved to Jordan. So as the family moved to Jordan, they moved also the know-how of the dates, palm trees, agriculture to Jordan, and planted a small land. At a certain point in time, I worked with the ones and my brother as well on expanding this into a structured business. Before coming across, crossing paths with RIF, we had been doing many attempts to grow the business. We had many challenges related to the scale of the business, the collaboration with other businesses around us, small farms around us. And we worked on co-creating also a cooperative for dates with other date farmers in the Jordan Valley region. There was an apparent need across all of us as small farmers that we needed to invest in technology on automating the sorting of dates, and being able to also, have more uniformity in the way we sort our dates so that we can access markets that are more profitable and markets that are outside of Jordan. This is where the Refugee Investment Facility came in and supported us with the procurement of a machine. This really was helpful on many scales. A big part of it is the workers struggle with the farmers, and the farmers struggle with the workers. For many years, farmers were unable to provide workers with stable jobs. Many of the workers in the Jordan Valley are either Palestinian refugees or Syrian refugees. And even the host community is considered by the government as a poverty pocket. So there was this struggle to be able to provide longer periods of work in terms of contracts that are much more structured, where people have the capacity to build in knowledge and learn and grow careers, as opposed to day-to-day labor that is unstructured. So a big part of the effort of the partnership with the Refugee Investment Facility was towards creating a workers' manual, one that provided best practices in terms of all the procedures related to growing the dates, to the harvest, to the pre-harvest procedures, which are quite complicated for people that are not familiar with this sector, but it's a year-round operation, and then the post-harvest and the sorting, and the big portion of the effort is towards bringing more awareness around worker rights for both the farmers and the workers alike. Most of the workers are women in this sector, and you know, we've all heard in the region where we work in the Jordan Valley about issues related to exploitation of workers. So our effort as a business that cares a lot about the impact of our business towards the community around us is to also, you know, attempt to spread know-how and knowledge on the importance of the duty of care and making sure that people are aware of their rights and that farmers are respecting those rights as well. The machine that we're going to set up, which is in the support with the support of the RIF, will allow all of us as small farms to be able to use the machine and sort our dates in a standard that is acceptable internationally in terms of the international market, allows us to compete on bigger contracts, because each one of us alone are unable to to sell to the bigger vendors, but all of us together using the machine are going to be able to sort our dates together and put them forward at the market together, increasing all of our potential as Ali dates and the other farmers that are going to be using the machine to increase the profitability of the dates and allow us all to be able to export as well. The machine is also going to be able to allow us to provide opportunities for us to also, you know, grow careers for the people that are going to be able to work with us and work with us on a long term, and we'll continue to also as a project will continue to also retain knowledge and be able to share knowledge across the sector. Although we are happy in the region that the situation has gotten slightly better in Syria with the change of the regime. However, most of the refugees in Jordan are still residing in Jordan because of the challenges around going back. 13 years of this brutal war meant that the majority of the poor people had either lost their houses or livelihoods. We have people that work with us with Ali dates that came to Jordan as children, and now they're grown-ups. So all they have known in their lives is the life of refuge, but you know, they built their lives here, and we continue to prioritize within the agricultural space in general in Jordan, prioritize Syrian refugees and Palestinian refugees. So being able to do that with an investment in staff rights and in staff best interest has been a great achievement out of the Refugee Investment Facility investment. The total investment been around 655,000 euros, which all went to the procurement of the machine, in addition to around 25,000, if I'm not mistaken, from DRC that are now going to the trainings of the workers and trainings of the farmers, as well as the development of the two manuals. And that's about it. I just want to say that from a business owner perspective, this was the first external investment that we put into the business. This was the first financing piece of work that we had put into the investment. A big part of this is the limitations around Sharia compliant financing, the difficulties with the limited options in terms of Islamic banks that exist within the country. So this opened new horizons for the business, kind of expedite the achievement scale that we had planned over many years by at least 5 to 7 years in terms of our growth. So we are also thankful for the knowledge that came in terms of how we structured our finance, how we built in new systems for financial tracking, auditing our internal books, all of that. We were able to kind of speed up, pick it up, and also directly get assistance from staff at the RIF team to do that. Also there's a lot of benefit in terms of learning that we got in terms of monitoring and evaluation that we got from the DRC team within the RIF team. That's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Elkuz. I just want to note for us, it was also a wonderful learning opportunity working with Ali Dates on the Sharia compliant loan product. It was our first foray into that as well. So thank you for being such a great partner for that.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be hearing from Yingi Lukule, who's the CEO of Rufi. Over to you, Yingi.
Well, thank you, everyone. As introduced, my name is Yingi Lukule, the CEO of Rural Finance Initiative. Rufi is basically a lender. We operate in Uganda and South Sudan. And actually, we entered the Uganda because of the refugee situation from South Sudan. So we've been lending to refugees for the past 8 years, mostly in the western region of Uganda. So we give a number of financial services to refugees and host communities. But out of the 11,500 clients, about 78% are refugees. It's because of this work, actually, when last year we won the European Microfinance Award for advancing financial inclusion for refugees and host communities. So how do we go about working with refugees? One of the options we have taken is because the refugees need to be understood before you can work with them. You find out over 60% of our staff are refugees, and then having created that harmony, they are able to understand what the refugee wants. And we design products and services that, one, meet the needs of the refugees, and two, don't make the host community feel that they are excluded from these services. So it's a delicate process whereby it shouldn't be like you're doing something for the refugees and leaving out the host community. You have to balance this very well. So we have to really look at, for example, we have a product which is cross-border. We use security from South Sudan to secure a loan for a refugee in Uganda. And then we can also work with VSLA groups to make sure that those ones who don't have collateral, especially the women, are able to benefit. Sometimes they are targeted products, like when the refugees just came in 2017, whereby we can design specific products, like one we called Remedy, Refugee Empowerment for Youth, and then the SMILE project, which was saving mobilization and lending effort for refugees. Those basically try to actually prepare them to become something better. So when we started from one branch, last year we made 6 branches, and most of them are actually centered around the refugee settings. So we give them loans of various types. Right recently, we have started on the ESGs, and we are also lending for green energy. Now, in the photo, you can see that is the typical client that we work with. You've seen the farmer there, we have the cemeteries and the women. And one unique thing you can see is that most of them deal with things that the common person or the refugee is not able to get from what the UN was giving them. So they look at a market opportunity, we finance them, and then they're able to do their business opportunities, mostly within the settlements, and then they proceed going forward. So it's not been easy, but then actually this year in May, things changed for the refugee. You can know what has happened to the to the market, USAID is out or whatever. So from May this year, actually last month, the UN stopped giving support to refugees that have been in Uganda for about 5 years. For those who are still getting, the average person is getting about $3 per day. Or for those who get grain, $3 per month. And for those who get grain, they get 3 kilograms of grain per month. Frankly, this cannot sustain a person. Then it reached a point of panic, actually a point of dilemma. UN is not supporting, and then you can't go home because we deal mostly with refugees from South Sudan, which is still fragile, although right now as I talk, I'm in South Sudan, and we also deal with some from Congo. In Congo, we have the M23 rebels who are also still causing problems. So these people are caught in dilemma, stay and do what? Go home and you may have to run back. And that one also forced us to go back to the drawing board. How do we work with these people in a situation that has changed? How do we support them? And how do we make sure that it's sustainable? Okay, so when you go right now to a refugee setting, especially one of the branches we call Morobi, you will be shocked at how much refugees have gone into farming. Now, unfortunately, and one of the actual refugees was jokingly saying, it seems like the weather conspired with the UN in that the rains have refused to come in time. So here they are, they're not getting food, and the rains are actually playing games with them. So it's become a dire situation, but from what I hear, the rains are coming, so that may improve the situation. So here we know they need entrepreneurial skills, and then they need actually financial support in terms of loans that can help them work out. Now that's where the relationship, strategic partnership with the RIF comes in. Build the capacity, give them loans that are affordable to help them build their relationship, their livelihood, because we know that ultimately we don't expect the UN to come back and support them. So as we build their capacity, they gain confidence because they know they can sustain themselves. The good thing is that most of them are dealing in crops that mature after 6 years. And actually, most of them are saying, should they do the first harvest, which is around August, they don't care about the UN whether they come back or not, because after that, they'll have a sustainable flow. So we are there also working with them to make sure that, yes, they don't fail, and neither does it affect us. Where does this lead us? It leads us to a situation whereby our work with partners like RIF and the rest should prepare us to what was paid in the introduction. How do we make sure that the interventions that we do with refugees and the forcibly displaced persons actually become sustainable and long-term solutions to the issues of refugees? Because the number of refugees is continuing, grants are coming down. How do we work together, we, RIF, and the rest of us in the webinar, to make sure that we develop those long-term solutions to address this ever-present issue that is facing the refugees? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yengi. I think all of our company panelists will be here for questions at the end, but for the time being, I'm going to turn it over to Sasha Giyama, who's going to present the RIF's result framework.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hello, everybody. I'm Sasha Giyama. I'm DRC's global lead for innovative finance, but I'm also the global co-coordinator for the RIF, and that includes working with Elizabeth and our partners at iGravity at essentially managing the due diligence process from start to finish to make sure that they get to the investment committee, and that we design a technical assistance package that also makes sense. In fact, as part of my role, I'm also the manager of the RIF Technical Assistance Facility, where we decide with the companies what would be the best way to support them. It's always really exciting to talk about what the RIF has been able to do and to hear behind these companies. As you will have heard, there's always an inspirational leader most of the time behind all these businesses, and it's been great to be able to achieve these results with them so far. Elizabeth has gone through the portfolio, and so through our existing invested portfolio, we've been able to reach over 23,000 people. You'll be able to see a bit more of these numbers in our upcoming impact report, which is due to be published in the next couple of weeks. Not to go into this into too much detail, but again, these results are in many ways due to clearly being able to work with and these companies that are, again, highly impactful, but also quite can be quite novel to find. That's the whole challenge and essentially the whole strength of the partnership. It is a joint due diligence and selection process that we have designed as a process between DRC and iGravity, a combined due diligence process, which again leverages our complementary, not just expertise, but our complementary presence in refugee hosting areas, and the expertise that our combined expertise can bring together. And I think another important part of what makes the impact case so interesting here is that once the investment is obviously closed, we have these long-standing, actively managed local partnerships with these enterprises, some of which you've heard today, which again is an ongoing relationship, both based on the investment that we make, but also on the technical assistance that we are able to provide them over the life of their facilities. Next slide, please. Yeah, a sneak preview of the next one. But in short, this is a high-level description of what our results framework looks like. It is how we observe, monitor, and evaluate the impact that our portfolio of investments are making based on the 4 impact themes that Patrick described earlier. In short, if you look at the top, outcomes 1, 2, and 3 are effectively how we observe those 4 impact themes. Outcome 1 relating to access to skills and enhanced skills enhancement. Outcome 2 being about employment. Outcome 3 being a combination of access to goods and services and financial inclusion. And the 4th one being one about the financial sustainability of the enterprise as a result of our investment in there. All of these outcomes are supported by a number of indicators that we have developed as part of the result framework. Again, the outcome 4, for example, the financial sustainability ones are all indicators that are of a financial nature. Outcomes 1, 2, and 3, when it comes to essentially the impact, are, as you'd imagine, indicators that are due to how we are able to reach or improve outcomes for our targeted groups. Interestingly, what I will say about the loan, how the loan link KPIs interact with our result framework, the fact that the investments that the RIF does into enterprises are impact-linked loans, so loans where the interest rate effectively goes down if the enterprises achieve certain pre-agreed KPIs with the company. It allows us to treat these KPIs as certain proxies, if you will, of how the enterprises have been able to develop their businesses with further benefits to refugees, and embed that within the result framework. Finally, each of the investments, as you'll see at the bottom, is obviously supported by a loan, or an impact-linked loan, but also a technical assistance package, which again supports the achievement of these outcomes. And with that, I will pass on to Lauren Post-Thomas from the Hilton Foundation. The Hilton Foundation, who has been one of our earliest supporters as both a grant funder and an investor, but also as a supporter more broadly of refugee lens investing and bringing us and some of our peers together to try to further nurture and boost this space. So Lauren, over to you. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sasha. Hi, everybody. Lauren Thomas. I'm the Senior Advocacy Officer with the Conrad and Hilton Foundation. And I'm really excited to be here to represent our Refugees Initiative. We're a supporter and a big fan of refugee lens investing and RIF in particular. You know, this is some of probably the most innovative and cutting edge work really happening in the realm of responses to forced displacement. Our initiative at the Hilton Foundation is dedicated to supporting sustainable and new ways of ensuring refugee inclusion into host countries and communities with a specific focus on markets and economic systems. You know, as we all know today, people are experiencing displacement for much longer periods of time with few opportunities for return or resettlement, you know, making integration kind of the most practical and sustainable approach that we have. At the same time, even before kind of the really drastic recent cuts from the US aid architecture and even some European donors, you know, aid had frankly really already plateaued in many displacement contexts. And that's really necessitated a need for a different solution, one that relies less heavily on aid as we know it, or kind of traditional aid, and that increasingly and deliberately engages the private sector and development finance institutions. You know, I think at the same time, we know we should be investing in refugees themselves in the frontier markets where they live. But there's this huge gap, as has been discussed, between kind of private capital investors and refugee entrepreneurs or refugee serving enterprises. And that's why refugee lens investing is so critical in this moment. It's not only demonstrating how these investments can be made, even in places where investors perceive risks to be quite high, and the impact they can have in helping communities and markets thrive. You know, of course, this work isn't without its challenges from both the demand and the supply sides of the equation, as well as when it comes to the policies and the regulations in a lot of these refugee hosting countries. And so it's really on us as donors, both public and private ones, you know, to play our role in helping to mitigate some of those challenges. And I think from the philanthropic side, you know, we really see our role as using our flexibility, our capital, our different financial tools to support first investments, reduce the risk for other investors to crowd in. And a prime example of that is the RIF. They presented us with this opportunity to not only make use of our traditional kind of grant dollars, but to support, you know, that could support technical assistance, but also take advantage of our ability to make low interest loans and act as a catalyst to get others to join in with larger investment portfolios. So, you know, our hope is, you know, that our support to the RIF and others in the refugee lens investing space, you know, it helps build some confidence in this model. And we're really incredibly proud of the investments the RIF has made so far, as you guys all heard today. Some really important work happening, really practical work happening that's having real impact. And we're really looking forward to what the future holds for the RIF in its existing markets and new markets, and how we can help continue to promote this approach. So big thank you to everybody, all the businesses on the call who presented their work. Big thank you to the folks at RIF. You know, we're going to continue to be committed in this space. And as Sasha kind of alluded to, we also have a community of practice that we host with the Refugee Investment Network. So if you're interested in being a part of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll leave it there, and back to you, Morten.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. Thanks a lot, everyone who shared with us over the last sort of 40 minutes or so. Time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. And so Q&A is a bit of a challenge now. I'll just make a quick plug for the next steps for the RIF, as I saw also a question in the chat. And then maybe Patrick, over to you to maybe round us off. Naturally, what we presented today is the result of a rather long journey and a lot of investment in building up a new approach here. We're seeing that is beginning to work, and so naturally we'd want to do more. And the way we hope to do that is what is here. Important to say, we're still deploying the pilot fund. We're still working with the enterprises in our portfolios and adding a couple more to the portfolio. In the medium term, rest of the year into 2026, we're really gearing up to expand the RIF into new markets, working with partners to try to do that, further develop our pipeline, and also contributing to the field of refugee-led investing. It's the ambition then that from 2026 onwards, we're able to scale quite significantly, a 5-time scale of the investment portfolio from 4 million to 24 million, also growing our operations and our technical assistance and investment readiness. That hopefully leads to 30 to 40 new investments across Asia, Latin America, and Middle East. So we hope to do a regional expansion too. And we hope in that we'll also be able to expand our partnerships portfolio, both on the funder side, but also all the others that we work with to build this field. And before handing over then to Patrick to close this, just wanted to recognize, in addition to the 3 enterprises here, the other enterprises that we're working with, and not least our funding partners also, who of course made this possible. In addition to the Hilton Foundation, it includes the Novo Nordisk Foundation, the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, ECHO, Missionary Sisters, and the IKEA Foundation, all of which have been great partners to date. Over to you, Patrick. I'm afraid not a lot of time for Q&A here in plenary, but we'll make sure to get back to each of you who have asked questions. I've made sure to note the names. And you can also learn more here at the different channels that you just saw there on the screen. But over to you, Patrick, to close this.
Thank you, Morten. I just wanted to give 1 minute, really 1 minute each, but 1 minute only to Mr. Omia, Mr. Elkuts, and Mr. Lokule for a final statement. If you want to speak either about the terms of the loan offered by the RIF, compared with the local market, local bank financing, or about the the impact KPIs we have agreed upon, or in general, what more do you need in the future to scale up? So any of these, if you can just 1 minute each, please. And I would start with, I see Mr. Khaled has raised a hand, so maybe you can go first.
Yes, and I just want to say this, not for us as a business, but in general, and for other parties that are supporting refugees. From our experience, that there has been 13 years of refuge of Syrian refugees in Jordan, the refuge and the struggle of the refugees. Prior to that, the struggle of the Palestinian refugees. And in most of the cases, donors unfortunately stay away from the private sector, and people resort to creating some sort of NGOs just to satisfy the needs for funding. So investing in the private sector and opening up to the private sector allows for sustainable solutions and sustainable help for refugees as well as host communities. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Khaled, for your final word. Yengi, would you like to go next with the final statement?
Yeah, actually, if you look at the approach that the RIF has relative to what's on the market, then you realize that they have taken into consideration the local aspects of the institutions the private sector is engaging in. Okay, that's why I said affordable in terms of the rate and affordable in terms of the entry requirements. And the approach that you have, I'm strongly sure that it's the one that will help everybody to be able to make the options of making a sustainable approach towards addressing the needs of the refugees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yengi. Mr. Mia, one final word from your side.
Oh, sorry, I got asked a question, I think, about the impact KPIs. So I think for us, we had two main impact KPIs, about number of active demonstration practical learning sites in the settlements, and also the percentage of farmers that are farming less than 0.25 acres. So being able to hit both of those KPIs would mean we pay less than by 2% interest rate. Of course, the Ugandan market rates are way over 27%. Secured facilities are still above 20%. So here we're paying between 5 to 7%, which is quite a good rate. And similar to what my colleagues are saying, where there are humans, there are always markets, and it's the same thing in the refugee settlements. And I want to strongly emphasize, where there are markets, and then private sector has a big role to play. And just like my colleagues, RIF came in as our first institutional investor, believing in us to work in the refugee settlements, and that's working out quite well. And we ask more other people to think about these market-based solutions for humanitarian settings. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So with this, I would like to close our webinar and thank you all for participating. We were super excited to see so many people attending. We will share with all of you the slides we have used as well as the recording. And if you would like to know more about the RIF, please get in touch with the iGravity and the DRC teams. Thank you and see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.